Hello and welcome to episode 76 of the MTG Conflux cast. My name is John, and I'm joined this week by my co-host, Chris.
Hello.
This week we're going to be recapping GP Phoenix, as well as checking in on the modern format. But with Worlds taking place this past weekend, there hasn't been much movement in Pioneer or Modern. But we're going to be talking about our own events, as well as looking at some MTGO Challenge and Premier events in both formats to kind of look and see how the meta is changing in the downtime between large Premier level events. Before we get into the podcast, I want to remind everybody that every week on Friday, we are on YouTube. This podcast you're listening to right now is on YouTube. You can see our beautiful faces contorted in agony as we as we record live for you, the listener. On our non-podcast weeks, there will be a video of gameplay from Moto with myself or Chris or even Steven once in a while. So make sure to tune into those. Last week, I put up a 7-round Pioneer challenge with Blue-Black Inverter, which I'll be talking a little bit about this podcast. If it sounds interesting, you can check out the video on our channel, MTG Conflux. But with that said, let's get into our weekly roundup and talk about what we've been up to. Chris, let's start with you as always.
So, last 2 weeks, I didn't play a ton of Magic because it was Valentine's Day on Friday.
Quick aside on that, FNM was like mono married guys. It's like, you'd think it'd be like all the single dudes, right? And there was, a decent number of single guys. We had about half turnout we normally do, but it was like all the married guys. Because married couples know that Valentine's Day fucking sucks for going out, so you do it on the weekend.
Yeah. Which is why I didn't go out. Instead, I decided that I was going to, make her a very nice dinner with some homemade pasta with a nice red vodka sauce with a side of chicken.
Man, you can't get away from the spaghetti even in real life, huh?
The spaghettis.
The noodles.
And it took fucking forever.
Yeah, I bet it did. I saw the picture on social media and I was like, fuck that shit. That's a lot of work. And I cook a lot. Like, I'm a big fan of cooking, but making homemade noodles that's a bitch and a half.
Like, so I've made her, this is my third time making her homemade pasta. The first 2 times was ravioli.
Ravioli.
Which is kind of worse, right? Because you have to like pack in the filling and then crimp it all down and make sure there's no like air in there.
I didn't know you had to like make sure there was no air because it like bubbles up.
Yeah, because when you boil it, the gas will expand and try to escape and pop out of your ravioli.
MTG pasta cast.
Which is not what you want, right? And so this time around, I was like, fuck ravioli. That shit's way too much work. I'm just gonna make some spaghetti and some vodka sauce because I saw this recipe online. Like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. The problem was I didn't have enough egg the first time around, so I had to add more egg. And then I add more egg, then it was too wet, so I had to add more flour. And next thing you know, I'm sitting there with like at least 2 pounds of pasta.
Oh shit!
Like a fuck ton of pasta. And it's
sideboard it up
but
to
that's
75.
Just dough, right? So you have to let the dough rest for
at
least half an hour, probably longer because there's more of it. La la la. So in the meantime, you go make your other stuff, right?
It got bigger too after it rested, right? Like the air, like whoop.
Yeah, and so you go start making your sauce, and you're like, wait a minute. Part of my sauce requires me to have pasta water, which means I need to be fucking boiling my pasta.
That's a good recipe. If your recipe calls for the pasta water, that's how you know it's a good sauce, by the way.
Yeah, but as of that moment, it wasn't boiling.
There was no pasta water.
The pasta was still in a ball, like covered, like resting. It's like, shit, nap time's over, man. Like, you gotta get out here.
You're in. Get in there.
But so, like, it's still a round dough, so you gotta like roll it out.
Yeah,
you can't just roll thin the first time. So at least
you gotta go multiple passes.
I didn't go like super old school with a fucking rolling pin. Screw that.
Did you have like an attachment, like the
so
two rollers that you like roll through?
That you like, you like mount it on the counter and it like it like clamps to the edge of the counter, and you just like crank that shit.
And little Italian music comes out.
Yeah, it's like a Jack in the Box, like but in Italian. And so you have to like adjust it to be thinner each time you run it through. But so I'm going, and it's like literally like
fucking long as shit.
Long. Right? And I had like 3 sections this long. And then you have to run it through the one where it like actually cuts it to make it like the spaghetti. And I can just put it in this big fucking vat of like pasta. And so I just have like all this fucking spaghetti. And we're like, there's no way we're gonna eat all this. So we only made like maybe like a third of the pasta I made.
So you had it 2 more times over the weekend?
No, so we actually froze the rest of the noodles for another time.
Smart guy.
But yeah, and then like trying to time like the sauce to be at a time where you'd want the pasta like, water to be like boiling, and then I was trying to make like this chicken to go with it.
Parasitic recipes that like require ingredients from another part of the dish are a bitch to time. And
I am by no means like an accomplished chef or cook or anything. Like I don't really cook all that often.
I got YouTube in a kitchen.
Yeah, so and I've been at her house, and at her house they don't really believe in measuring ingredients.
Oh God.
Because most of the things they've made like 400 million times.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just like put it in, and they put in some spice or some whatever, and they just like, oh, it needs a little bit more. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I have no idea what you guys are doing. So I'm over there like making something I've never made before, right? I'm like, okay, I need this much cream. It's like, well, measuring fuck cups? Me, we're just gonna pour it in for the best.
What the fuck are measuring cups?
Like, oh, how much vodka? Is this too much vodka? Not enough vodka?
No
I don't know.
Thing. Oh man. Yeah, no,
trying
to do something like a dough without measuring sounds like a fool's errand. I'm amazed you had good results.
Well, actually, I mean, I think the dough is like the easiest thing to make without the measurements, because it's just like if it's falling apart, it's too dry.
Yeah.
And if it's like too sticky, it's too wet.
Yeah, you say that, but you ended up with like 3 times as much fucking dough as you were supposed to. So
not that much more, but definitely more.
Yeah.
I should have had like twice as much as I needed instead of 3 times as much as I needed.
I got you.
Anyways. Enough of MTG pasta cast. Yeah, so I played some Amulet.
Of course you did.
Yeah. So I played 2 leagues online and once in paper. In paper, it was 2 weeks ago at FNM. I did not play the new Dryad Valakut shenanigans. Just the good old fashioned, some snakes on a. I can't make it good snakes on a plane. Here.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, so what was weird about that FNM was I played against Eldrazi 3 out of 4 rounds. So that was cool.
Ugh.
I think I played against literally every person in the room who was playing the deck.
Yeah. Fuck that, man.
And surprisingly, I lost to it twice.
Man, they must have just been better than you. Why'd you lose?
Literally. Yeah, so you can't win every time, right? But it's really hard to beat the double TKS draws. Like the Chalice on 0 into double TKS, it's kind of hard.
That's like the nut high though, right?
Kind of hard to beat those draws. I did lose a game because I kept a kind of greedy hand. It was like triple Amulet, a Pact, and some lands. But the lands didn't make green. It's like, alright, but I mean, if I draw like literally any green bounce land, I win the game. Like immediately. Or if I draw any regular bounce land, any other regular green land, I can play like, maybe a Once Upon a Time if I draw it and then go get a green land and then kill them.
Mm-hmm.
I instead just never drew any real lands ever, and just died, so that was cool.
In your 30 land deck.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, you really need a green source. Well, how about a Radiant Fountain? No? Well, perhaps Cavern Souls. Is this a green source?
Well, yes, but actually, no.
Like, oh, you want another Teleria West? Like, well, fuck.
That kind of makes green.
Because it's like, you need to play 2 Tolaria West in order to transmute the 3rd Tolaria West you draw. But it's like, there's no way I'm going to draw a 3rd Tolaria West. So I just won't play the 2nd Tolaria West because it's mana positive with my 3 amulets. So I'll just like wait on it. And then, you draw like your 3rd one and you die the turn where you can transmute. Yeah. You know the drill.
Excellent.
But online, I have been playing the Valakuts because it's pretty cheap. I tried the first league out with 4 scouts and 4 Zeusa-4 dryads. The deck felt very clunky. I was not a fan of snakes plus 8 3-drops.
Mm.
Because Snake is just not very good at making 3 mana on turn 2. Because half of your lands come into play tapped.
Tapped, yeah. But Grazer.
And even if you play an Amulet, so if you go like turn 1 Snake, turn 2 Amulet, then you can do it, but then...
Yeah. But if you just play Grazer, easy peasy.
Yeah, so it was kind of clunky. I went 3-2 the first league, clung to my way through. Second league, I swapped out for Grazers, and Grazers felt much better playing with a bunch of Dryads in your deck. That being said, I think I went 2-3.
Oof.
In that league. I got paired against Grixis, and yeah, that matchup was kind of bizarre because it's like just slogging through this Mystic Sanctuarying back counter spells and stuff is just really annoying, but Grixis can't actually kill you in like a reasonable amount of time, so you can kind of just sit and wait.
I mean, Cavern's obviously really good there, right?
Yeah, so if you Cavern in 1 Titan, you get to feel that the game's basically. You just have to be patient. And Grazer's really good at blocking Snapcaster Mage, which is like the only way they usually sneak out the wins, right? So they want to like play early snaps and like pressure you while disrupting you with their like Grixis stuff. But a Grazer just like sits there and soaks up a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to burn like cards on your stupid Grazers, which have already done their job to ramp you. That's pretty nice. Humans, I play against humans next, and as it turns out, when your lands can kill the humans don't like that.
Yeah, it seems not ideal for them.
So they had like a meddling mage almost every time, but I think one game I just drew the Valakut and just got to machine gun their entire board.
I feel like humans already had a bad matchup against old Amulet, so like playing Valakut certainly doesn't improve things.
Yeah, I mean the plan was always basically meddling mage and Primeval Titan, hope you get there in time.
Mm-hmm.
And with Valakut just gives them another draw to make you not get there in time. And having a bunch of stupid 2/4s is pretty good at like stepping the aggression.
Yeah,
because then the meddling mages can't even get in. And there's times where like you have an Azusa and a Dryad, and they can't even get in with a 3/3 meddling mage after like a lieutenant or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you just buy a lot more time. But you gain Valakut, but at the expense of Walking Ballista. So I don't know.
Yeah, is Ballista in the board still or no?
I had it in the board, yeah, but a lot of people don't. And then, so I'm feeling pretty good, 2-0, and then I get shreked by 3 Blood Moon decks back to back to back.
Nice.
I get paired against Blue Moon, and that felt miserable, as it always does.
There's a reason why people are playing that deck right now. It's
and
you.
Blue Moon, now with access to Mystic Sanctuary, is really dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, oh, as long as they don't draw Blood Moon, I can slog the shit. And they're like, oh, how about, can you beat another Remand? I had a turn where I thought I might finally be able to do something, and he just goes, oh, fetch my Tarn for Mystic Sanctuary, put my Remand on top of my deck, crack my Fiery Islet, draw my Remand.
Yeah, were they playing like Omen of the Sea?
I didn't see it.
Omen's like Omen and Op to make it really easy to like get stuff too, like.
Yeah, they were playing Thing in the Ice and Magmatic Sinkholes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that version, yeah. Yeah,
and then I got paired against Mono Red Prowess twice in a row, which is a dumb deck.
And they're playing moons. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like for when they're not quite fast enough, it's like, oh, I didn't kill you. Well, here's a blood moon. I'm gonna kill you pretty soon, anyways.
Yeah. Fun fact: Blood Moon triggers prowess.
Yep.
Because why not? Really glad to be playing Grazer and not Scout against the Lava Dart deck.
Yeah. Fuck that shit.
But yeah, lots of Blood Moons, pretty good. And there was I almost got to sneak out victory against the Blue Moon deck with the whole like Dryad, like time stamping around the Blood Moon to like get around the Blood Moon. But even after I resolved one, like I had to fight to resolve one. He just untaps and like bounces it with Brazen Borrower.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like back to trying to resolve this stupid fucking 3-drop.
Sweet. Getting remanded? God, I love remand. What a fun card.
Yeah, so overall, it's kind of a little bit hard to say if the Valakut plan is like actually really good. Because against like Grixis, I didn't feel like it was necessary at all. Against humans, obviously, it was very good. But like any random removal spell would have been just as good.
Mm-hmm.
And in the times where I like landed a Titan and got to nuke their shit with a Valakut, I think that I could have found a way to kill them regardless. And then against the Blood Moon decks, it didn't matter at all. And having Dryad didn't save me against the Blood Moon decks either.
Mm-hmm. It's like a few extra percentage points in your favor, I guess.
Yeah. But personally, not super impressed. But keep trying it out, see how it goes. One thing I'll say, I guess I'll just talk about, or maybe I'll talk about this later. But
however you want to.
Fine, let's just talk about Amulet now. Just get it all out of the way.
It's always Amulet time.
So you should definitely asking like, do I think Titan's the best deck? And
the SCG people will think it's the boogeyman for sure, judging by what people are playing and
yeah. So like
board options.
The Wednesday after we last recorded our last podcast, Modern Nexus came out with an article talking about the perceived menace of this, Titan meta or whatever, and it clearly showed that among SCG events, Amulet was very highly represented, but it wasn't very highly represented in the top results.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing in like the top 8. I don't think, not a whole lot in the top 32. Like a decent number in day 2, but mostly by sheer volume of people registering the deck. And so, is the deck actually that good? I'm kind of the opinion, haters will say it's biased, but I'm kind of the opinion that the deck is not as good as everyone thinks it is. And I think that online, there's definitely this huge like surge against the Titan decks. Like, when's the last time we've seen I can't remember the last time I played against like a Blue Moon type of deck. Yeah,
it's been a minute.
And there was once a time when Modern Red Prowess didn't even board Blood Moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just like, why? It was you just kill them before.
Yeah, just kill them.
You're killing them on turn 3 or 4, so why play Blood Moon when it's yeah.
Granted, those were days with looting in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
But
so as a quick aside, we're going to talk about this later, but we've got the Modern Challenge and Premier event from this past weekend, and in the 6-1 or better decks, it looks like there's a 7-0 Amulet deck, but that's the only deck represented in the Premier event. But then in the challenge, there's like 3 6-1 Amulet decks, and 3 5-2 Amulet decks out of I don't know, like 32 people or so, I think is what this is, top 32. So the Amulet decks, there's one at 4 and 3, I guess, but by and large they floated to the top. So it's still it's still doing pretty well. Although online there are a lot of dedicated Amulet grinders, so it's not surprising that there would be good results from, other aficionados such as yourself who are going to play Amulet, rain or shine.
Yeah, only deck I have online, so
yeah, exactly.
Kind of locked in on that one.
But I mean, it has been putting up decent results this last weekend online, at least. So,
yeah. One thing I'll say, I did notice something on Reddit today where people were talking about Amulet. Because God, everyone, for some reason, modern players fucking love talking about bans.
Mm-hmm.
And especially on Reddit.
God, Reddit loves bans.
Reddit loves bans. Reddit loves clamoring about bans. And this is banned. Like, this needs to get banned. That needs to get banned. Blah, blah, blah. So, as usual, someone's talking about, oh, should this be banned? Like, should Titan decks get banned? And one person mentioned that the move towards these Valakut type of strategy Amulet lists makes these decks easier to play.
Mm-hmm.
Which I agree with. You'll notice even in one of these in some of these like decks that did well, placed well in the challenge, don't even play engineered explosives in their main deck. Like, I think one list I found didn't even, 6-1 didn't even have explosives in the main deck, and a lot of decks are going down to tutorial lists. So the deck as a toolbox deck is becoming less of a thing. And it's becoming more straightforward of play some lands, play a Garen Brig, make a Titan, make some Valakuts, pew 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 pew. Which I kind of dislike. Because my one of the reasons why I like the deck so much is because of how intricate and convoluted it is. And to have the deck be dumbed down is not necessarily something that I personally want for the deck. Not that it has anything to do with necessarily is it too good, right? But I think that's also a reason why it's becoming more popular.
Yeah, makes
the
sense.
biggest barrier to entry was its complexity, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least its perceived complexity. And I mean the combo kills were very, easy to find. Playing the deck, always. But it was the grindy, decks where you really need to tutor out the right things at the right times that were, differentiating the really good players and the people who know how to play Summer Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
But now those games are just fewer and far between because, if you have a Dryad and you play a Titan, you get a Valakut, and literally other end of the land in your deck, you're gonna bolt some stuff.
Or even before that, Field of the Dead made the lines a lot more clear too, right? Like,
yeah,
like you.
But I mean, with Field, you still had to make sure you make sure. Oh, do you have how many names you have? What different names? Because there's a lot of times where you want a second Growth Chamber for 2 blue, but if you do that, you won't get zombies. And so there's times where you're supposed to not get zombies, so you can have the 2 blue to transmute.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people would think, oh no, I can't do that. I just need to make zombies. But with the Valakut, it doesn't even fucking matter. Just get literally whatever and just start shooting stuff.
Well, it seems like a lot of the cards that have been added to the deck have much more on rails play patterns, right? Like Castle Garenbrig is very obvious for how you're supposed to use that card. Like,
yeah,
you're not doing weird shenanigans with Karoo lands trying to bounce them and generate mana. You're just play some lands, tap the Garenbrig, you make 6 green mana, and you play your Titan. Done. Seems much more streamlined.
Yeah, there's no complexity about this card.
Yeah.
it ramps 1.
So I noticed that 2 of the lists in the challenge are still playing Sakura Tribe Scout, and 1 is playing the Grazers. Our 7-0 Pioneer list is on 1 Grazer, 4 Scouts. So they also were playing Scout, but wanted a 5th of the effect. So it looks like the Grazer decks are less popular than the Scout decks, which is interesting, because it does seem like you were saying there is some reasons to be off of Scout right now. What with the lava darts floating around in earnest, and just the fact that padding your deck with a bunch of 3-drops and Scouts doesn't always work out so well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I can think of is that Scout is better with an active Valakut than Grazer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Scout is a lot better once you're online than Grazer, but Grazer is better at getting you online in the face of interaction or in the face of a non-amulet draw.
It does increase your survivability as well, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Grazer's, I think, on average, better at getting you there, and Scout's better at doing things once you're there.
Maybe with Once Upon a Time in the deck, it's just not, the issue isn't necessarily getting there as much as it used to be. Like you think you're getting there more often, and then it's just having the highest threshold of power level at that point.
Well, I mean, Once Upon a Time doesn't help you accelerate.
No, but it helps you find the stuff that you need to, right? Like,
yeah, so it helps you, like,
because like before you'd have to stir on one sometimes, right? But now if you're oncing on one, then you're playing your Grazer or your Scout or your Amulet on one, right? So that you're kind of like compressing the timeline on when you're taking like relevant actions, I feel like. Is that wrong?
Yeah, I just feel like I would want to be like putting the pressure on as early as possible by playing a 3-drop on turn 2 as consistently as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And Grazer does that better than Scout does.
Yeah, that's fair.
That being said, I mean, I like Scout a lot. But in a Scout's also hard to play with than Grazer. But I don't know, like, I would just think that in a vacuum you would rather be playing Grazers, not in a vacuum, because your Scouts are more susceptible to interaction.
Yeah,
and if your first play of your game is a Azusa or a Dryad on turn 3, it's
pretty
not
medium.
Great. Like, if your first play of the game is a turn 3 Dryad, you can't even play a Titan the next turn unless you have unless you have like 2 untapped lands in your hand that turn you untap with a Dryad. Which is a lot to ask.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that might be more likely if you weren't doing anything the first 2 turns of the game and you kept. One would hope, at least.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is Dryad's kind of annoying online because now your land's all tapped for everything.
Oh, it's like more clicks.
Yeah, so like Cabinet of Souls, God. So Cabinet of Souls has 1 for colorless, and then 1 for each color with the clause of can't be countered, and then 1 for each color.
So it's got 11 options?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
It's pretty absurd.
That's
and then if your opponent has Urborg, it has tap for swamp twice. There's 2 separate instances of tap for black.
Awesome.
Don't know why that's a thing.
But. Yeah, it's just how it's coded. It adds it separately. Yeah.
But, tapping fetch lands for mana is great.
Yeah.
Because then you can save them for later when you want to like have an active Valakut or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, people are doing that in Pioneer for blue-black inverter. You play Urborg, so that way your Fabled Passages can tap for black after you invert. Because otherwise, you have like no basics in your former graveyard now deck. There's no basics in there usually. Like, why would there be? So yeah. Now your Fabled Passages you're redrawing actually put you up on mana, which is really nice. So you don't think it's the scourge of the format?
I think it's definitely the perceived boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing everyone pivot to that point. A lot of these Amulet decks are even playing what was it called? Aether Gust, yeah.
Oh.
Sideboarding Aether Gust for what I presume is the mirror.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
In the past, they would typically just play Disdainful Stroke because, like, oh, it's good in the mirror and it counters Urza.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now with the ban on Opal, I guess everyone's not so concerned with Urza anymore and actually just really wants the ultra anti-green hate. And Aethergust is better because it beats Caverns.
Mm-hmm. You said you got Flash Frozen, right?
Yeah, my Blue Moon opponent Flash froze my Dryad.
I haven't put Flash Freeze in my deck in like maybe 2 years. It was probably in a Blue Moon deck the last time I played it.
I can't imagine like
oh man,
you didn't have enough ticks to get like an Aethergust.
I mean, countering is good, but yeah, I don't know.
Like countering instead of putting it on the bottom. I don't know.
I guess they can bring it in against the red decks too. Like, how good is Aethergust against mono red prowess? You know.
I mean, Aethergust does the same thing. How good is Flash Freeze against mono red prowess? Really,
it counters.
Okay, but putting it on the bottom of the deck is like basically the same thing.
They choose?
No,
crazy.
You choose. Oh, its owner chooses.
Yeah. So it's like they're like, bolts you, trigger, prowess triggers, put it on top. Cool. Next turn, bolts you again, more triggers. Like, I don't know.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah, maybe they're just hedging because there's like so much prowess. I don't know, but they're like, oh, I'm a Blue Moon deck, so I already have like the Cavern like kind of unlock. I don't know. I'm sure like kind of like line of reasoning. So, well, you've been having your adventures in Modern. I've been having adventures in Pioneer. Although I guess I'll talk about my FNMs first. So since 4C Snow has been brutally downpowered by the loss of Oko, it is now the dirtiest of decks. It's so slow. God, it's so slow without Oko. I forgot how slow it was. Oh, it's like snail's pace, man. So I've been playing other decks again. I was on the same deck for the longest I've been on a deck for a while, right? It was like, what, half a year on 4 Color Snow?
Yeah,
something
time.
Like that.
Pretty long time.
So I'm back to my different deck every week ways again. I have a sickness. Can only be cured by jank.
Welcome back, John.
What's that?
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. I missed you all. Bringing spice to the podcast instead of talking about the same deck every week like Chris does. But I played Bant Snow. I played McWindsauce's list with the Blood Moons in the board because we have so much E-Tron and Amulet at our shop. And I got riggedy wrecked. It was awesome. I played the like 75 card mirror in the last round in like the losers bracket. Like we were both playing McWindsauce's list, except he actually had the 75 and I had the 73 because I don't own an Uro or an Elspeth, a new Elspeth. So I subbed him out. I think I played like a third Teferi instead of Uro, a baby Teferi, and then instead of Elspeth, I played 4-mana Gideon. Not as good of cards, let me tell you. Especially the Gideon. Holy crap. Pales in comparison. So that was a bummer. I like got whomped game 1. Game 2 was looking pretty good for me. Then my opponent got like a phone call and had like some emergency at home and had to leave. So I was literally I was Elspeth spared from death, or whatever the the name of that card is.
So who escaped there, you or your opponent?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a bummer. That was like the last round too, I think. So and then this week I was like, you know what? I want to play something more proactive. I've been playing these Stoneforge decks for a little bit at FNM like 2 weeks in a row. And I was like, you know, I thought like Batterskull was proactive enough, but I just feel like I'm like dying before I can like do what I need to do. I need to be more aggressive. So I was like, I'll play Grixis Death Shadow. So I put together Grixis Death Shadow, which I haven't played in like, what, 2.5, 3 years probably. And people are like, oh, I didn't know you played Grixis Death Shadow. I've never seen you play that deck. I was like, I played this deck at like 2 GPs. I like day 2'd in Vegas with this deck. Like, what?
Yeah, when that was like the deck.
Yeah, man, that was the deck. Beat Chris Picula in the mirror. Yeah, my one claim to fame. Really awesome. That and drawing against Paulo in Team GP.
Meanwhile, I went to Vegas, played against a guy from our own fucking shop at the end of day one and lost.
Oof. Yeah, it's like the time I went to SEG Portland and like played with someone I rode down with. It was like a few 100-person event. It was like round 4. I'm on like Death and Taxes, and they're playing like Jeskai Delver or something, and just fucking murdered me like a pile of removal. I was like, cool, that was fun. Anyways, so I played GDS. I played against like Rug Delver round 1, and like somehow mixed up the interaction. I played like we had like a pretty cluttered board. Like I had like multiple shadows and like a Gurmag, and they had like Goyfs, like 2 Goyfs and a Hooting Mandrills, I think. And like I rip the Royal Scions off the top, and I mistook the trample plus first strike interaction for the trample plus death touch interaction. To see where this is going. And like I did the big think and was like, yep, we're good. I'm pretty sure I just plus on a shadow and swing with the team, and I got it. And it was like, no, I did not have it. I had to assign more damage to a blocker than I thought I had to.
More than one, huh?
More than 1 damage, it turns out. Still was like, took some mathing on both our parts. And then I did it on the correct pack. So that was super sweet, because I could have just like...
If you had mono 1/1s, you may have not realized your mistake.
Yeah, right. So I think if I just like plussed on a shadow and swung in, it would have like basically been an abyss. So rip. Probably could have won that game. Oh well. So I lost that match, and then I played against oh geez, testing my memory. My terrible memory. I played against geez. What did I play against? My memory is so bad, it doesn't matter. I did not do well. I think I finished 2-2. And so of course I'm off to some other deck now. Shadow felt good, but I just had some close matchups. So this time I'm looking at playing. I got my eye on Dimir Urza, because I hit up a friend. I was like, hey, could I borrow your Urzas? I want to like try playing an Urza deck. And he's like, sure. And he's like, actually, show me your trade binder, and maybe I'll just trade you for him. I was like, sure, whatever. And then he actually found crap he wanted in my pile of garbage, so I own 4 Urzas now. Guess I'm playing Dimir Urza.
So I'm pretty sure there's a really good Urza deck out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't really been, but it may have not been discovered yet.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. People are messing around with like Bant still, and there's the blue-black one, which I like because it's kind of like a control deck. I like playing removal and counter spells, and then it's got the combo in Urza is just like a really high value threat. So, but what
listening to you, John, playing these like Bant, Snowblade, Snow Control, blue-black Urza. You wouldn't believe that this guy played, anything remotely aggressive in the past.
Yeah. That's the other deck that's caught my eye, though. The other deck, this deck that's probably terrible, this pile. I spied in like a 5-0 deck dump, some madman, Ocelot 823. I wonder if that's like their area code. is playing blue-white Delver Blade in Modern, and boy oh boy did this catch my interest. It's running like the blue-white Blade package, but I'll move it over so people on YouTube can see, I guess. It's running like 4 Delvers, 4 Snaps, 4 Stoneforge, and they've got this 2-2 split of Path Exile and Vapor Snag that I'm not entirely on board with. And then they're playing Remands, 4 fucking Archmage's Charms to go with some not Mystic Sanctuaries, which is kind of interesting. They got 4 Archmage's Charms, just running it as a counter spell / draw spell. 4 Force of Negations. And then they've got 4 Serum Visions, because you have to be able to flip your Delver, and 2 Opts. So it's just like this aggro control pile. I know, it looks sweet. I love Delver Secrets. I lost to Rug Delver at FNM, so clearly, you know, Delver is good again in Modern, right?
Oh, some say it was never bad.
Yeah, that's a lie. It's a fucking lie. But yeah, man, I don't know. I used to just play like mono Delver, mono tempo decks, and I just like want to play something aggressive again. I don't know. I just feel like all the aggressive decks are like too burny. It's like mono red prowess is not my jam. I don't want to like play dudes huck lightning bolts at my opponent's face and then like cross my fucking fingers every turn of the game. It's just like not what I'm about. I want to play some permission, and like aggressive decks with permission haven't really like.
They're usually bad.
Yeah, Greg Gurkha's Death Shadow is definitely the closest we've had to that, and Shadow kind of saw like a little bit of a resurgence, but it's kind of dropping back down again. But who knows? We'll try out this sweet blue-white pile. I'm gonna run it through a league before I take it to FNM, see if it plays anything like I imagine it does. I'd hate to just like get raffle stomped at FNM again, because I bring a absolute dumpster fire of a deck. I am noticing a lot of these decks, like this blue-black, or Where's the Deck is also playing. All these decks are playing like 3 and 4 Archmage's Charms now, man. Like all the blue decks are just like loading up, just like cramming play sets of Archmage's Charm into their deck. And like very few, you know, like the Where's the Deck is playing 2 Cryptics. This blue-white deck isn't playing any because it's, you know, an aggro deck basically. So, I don't know. Seems like Cryptic is slowly being unthroned in favor of Archmage's Charm. Being a mana cheaper is kind of big, and it lets you, you know, just double draw. Sometimes it comes up with Cryptic, you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna like bounce something, draw a card EOT to like try to get some card advantage or whatever. Yeah. And
it's like I really want to try and dig for something, but I don't want to just throw this Cryptic away for no value.
Yeah, and Charm just like does it way better, and it's really good against like crap like Death Shadow. I played an Archmage's Charm. I think it was like the blue-red breach deck. I played against Amulet, and I like took their Amulet, and they were like, okay. I had this Amulet like the whole time. It was like, if I like fetch a shock tap, does the Amulet untap it? I don't even remember what. I think so. And they're like, yeah. They're like, yeah. It's like, okay, I guess I'll do that. It's like, cool, very high impact play.
It's like EOT, fetch first defense, trigger untap. All right, go to my turn.
Yeah, basically. I think I did do that. It's more like basically played it as a shatter. I was like, cool, shatter with upside, I guess. Yeah. But aside from Modern, I have been playing Pioneer, and I went through a god awful event. I played a 7-round Pioneer challenge, and it was last Sunday, and it started at 6 in the morning. Oh, I'm not a morning person. I try to sleep in as late as fucking possible. On the weekends, that's usually like past 10 o'clock minimum, hopefully. That's like ideal. I woke up at 6 a.m. I think I went to bed at like 10. I tried to go to bed at 10. I did not sleep well, man. I was tossing and turning. I had a really hard time falling asleep that early. I don't feel like I slept very much at all, honestly. Like maybe I was finally getting some actual sleep at like the end of the night.
6 a.m. is generally when John goes to bed.
Yeah, more in that direction at least. God. So I get up, I make my coffee, I like heat up an English muffin or something, fire up the OBS, start recording, and God, did I play a lot of mirrors. So I played I like registered my deck too, like the night before I went to bed. I was like, oh, in case I don't wake up in time, if I like wake up a little late, I'll like, you know, at least I'll be in the event and like show up late to round 1. But I like locked in Team Peppa Pig's blue black inverter deck. Who the fuck is Team Peppa Pig, you might be asking yourself, because I didn't know who the fuck they were until I was paying more attention on Twitter. But it's a bunch of like the younger SCG grinders, like it's Oliver Chu and Oliver Tamajiko. Can never like, I can't pronounce either of their names properly, I don't think. And Noah Walker, who I really have been a fan of because of his play of Grixis Delver and Legacy for a long time. I think he's like just like a really good aggro tempo type player. And I always really like his deck lists. I feel like they're really well polished and positioned against the metagame. And both of the Olivers have been pretty hot shit now and in the past. Just playing competitive Magic. I think they collectively just have really good deck lists. They were partnered with like Ben Friedman, who I've liked a lot of his lists in the past, and another player who I don't really remember their name. They didn't do very well. I think they're like the odd man out on the team. So I was like, okay, like really good pedigree on deck lists from this team, and they were all through the two Olivers and Noah were playing this list exactly at the PT that we're going to talk. Oh, sorry, the PT that we're going to talk about in Phoenix.
GP.
And was it?
It's a GP, right?
There was a PT and a GP.
No,
it was both. They did paired events. Yeah. Sorry. So they were at the PT in Phoenix. And they registered the same list. And their list was really teched for the Lotus decks and for the Mirror. And I was expecting, because this was the Sunday of that, PT event, so deck lists were public. Everyone that's paying attention kind of knew what was going on. And I was expecting a lot of Lotus Field decks, and I was expecting a lot of bug decks of Uro. And I was like, okay, like they're playing like 2 main deck Mystical Disputes, like all the good decks are blue. I'm totally on board with that. They're playing 4 of the 2 mana main deck discards. They had 4 Thoughtseize and 4 Thought Erasures. So they're like really all in on the discard. They had main deck Narset and a Narset in the sideboard, which like no one else had been playing at that point. And Narset's just like really good against the Mirror and the Lotus decks. So I was like, okay, yeah, it's actually pretty good against Uro too, because it stops him from drawing the extra cards. So I was like, yep. I'm like, I'm on board with all this. It sounds really great. I think this teched out list is awesome. And then I had seen, because I looked through like all the inverter deck lists that got published from the PT. I was like, I want to see what people are doing. I really want to know. And I saw some people were playing copies of Agonizing Remorse. And I really liked Agonizing Remorse as an option for inverter instead of Thought Erasure, because it does the Thoughtseize thing. So it's 1 and a black. You look at their hand, you take a card, but you exile a card. And if you don't look at a card from the hand, you can exile a card from the graveyard. And I was like, wow, this seems really great. Like, you see the same amount of cards, you can take the same cards, but you can exile the Uro to get it gone from the hand for good, or like a card against the field decks so that they can't Underworld Breach it back later. Or you can take the combo piece against Inverter, and then it's gone. It's not like ready to be shuffled back into the deck by Inverter later so that they can set up the win. It snags Uro if it's already in the graveyard, so they can't escape it. It's like fringe good against like the Flayer decks and the other graveyard decks in case those show up, because like, normally against those decks you don't really want to be taking stuff out of their hand and putting it in the yard, because they're trying to do that anyways, but now you just exile it and it's still good. So you lose a life on like Thought Erasure, which doesn't cost you any life, and you miss it on the Surveil 1. And so I was like, well, I think I'm like pretty okay with that trade-off. And so I kept their list exactly as it was, except for I swapped the 4 Thought Erasures for those. And losing the Surveil, I think, was pretty relevant, honestly, over the course of a 7-round event. I mean, that is a lot of, draw filtering that you lose out on not having that Surveil 1. It doesn't feed 2 cards in the yard for Delve. So I'm thinking maybe like a 2-2 split might have been better, just to have access to the effect, like you're getting Uro'd less often that way. But I played the Mirror 4 times in that event, 7-round event. Played the Mirror 7. Played it 4 times. So
you're the Mirror master down, right?
Yeah, I went 1 and 3 in the Mirror.
Oof.
And so their list does not really have any like sideboard jukes. I mean, it's got Jace, Vern's Prodigy, but you're not playing Pack Rat. You're not playing Scarab God. You're not playing Enter the God Eternals. Your win cons are basically the Inverter combo, Jace's ults, either Jace's ult, which is pretty slow to work up towards. No cloaks from the Blind Eternities to like rebuy into the combo, just really kind of streamlined. But I feel like a lot of people were like, some people are playing 4 Pack Rats on the board, which is just a ton of slots to spend on, like a sideboard juke. I don't know. And Pack Rat is super mana intensive to actually do anything with. I actually beat a player in the mirror in game 3 where they just like played a rat, and then like the whole game was just about the rats. And it was like, I kept killing the rats, bouncing the rat, like interacting with the rats, and like they never actually were able to like get like a surplus of rats in play and actually like beat down. Like they were on like 1 to 2 rats at all times. It was like I'm tapped out where they have like a rat, or like I have been up and they have a rat going into 2 rats. And it was like they were never able to like get a lot of damage in. And I just like squeezed them on resources, then combo killed them. So like rat really like it strips resources out of your hands, it ties up your mana. It's just like you're all, if you decide you're on the rat plan, you're like all in on the rat plan. And I'm like, you can get exploited by an opponent who like looks to leverage that, like I did. And
yeah, I mean, it's kind of how the Pack Rat plan goes, right?
That's how the Pack Rat crumbles.
You never go half in on the rat.
No, you really can't. Like you can't maybe we like take the foot off the gas pedal. And so, like, don't get me wrong, like, if you get the rat, like, on 2, you can, like, run away with it. And that's, like, so I literally, like, thought, like Thoughtseize or, Erasure affected my opponent, took the rat, and then they're, like, drew for the turn and drew another fucking rat and played the rat. And the game was about the rat at that point. But, like, it's not a guarantee you're going to win, I don't know. People are like, a lot of people are playing Legions in the sideboard, 1 to 2 copies, very common. Like that's a really clean answer to the rat. You can also play it against Thassa's Oracle. So if they like run out an Oracle, you can strip any extra ones from their hands. It exiles them. They're gone. They're not getting, they're not fuel for dig. They're not getting shuffled back in by Inverter. So I don't know. I'm not a huge believer in the rat plan, honestly. And if I was going to run rat, I'd probably only run like 1 or 2. I wouldn't go full bore on the 4 fucking rats, I don't think.
Yeah, as it turns out, if you play a second rat with the rat already in play, 2 mana for rat versus 3 mana for rat, not really that much better.
Yeah, I mean, it comes up sometimes when you're trying to squeeze through like a mystical dispute, and you're like, aha, I can rat on 5 instead of ratting on 6. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it you draw the rat more often.
Yeah, exactly.
But drawing the second rat is not very good.
Yeah, it's marginal returns. It's like, yeah, it's like I guess you just discard it to the rat because that way they can't counterspell it, right? Like,
or you make 2 rats on 5 instead of 1.
Yeah, so it's whatever. So I played against the mirror a lot. I felt like I'm not saying I'm just unlucky. Like I feel like I played pretty well, but not like definitely not perfectly. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure I wasn't playing perfectly, but I felt like a lot of the games came down to like we were just kind of both slugged it out, ended up kind of empty-handed, and my opponent would like rip a dig first, or like they just like stumble into the second half of the combo, and I just die. And that was really frustrating. It feels kind of like Jund sometimes where like, oh, you're like trading resources back and forth, and then like someone like rips like you draw a Thoughtseize and they draw a Bloodbraid Elf, right? Like game's fucking over at that point usually. Like that's what happens a lot in the mirror, and I felt like I was on flipping coins basically, and I felt like I was losing the flips more often on those low resource games where we were at parity. So it was frustrating because I feel like my version of the deck, I'm playing Narset, I'm up at 2 on board, I have like more ways to find action. I'm playing Jace, I have a lot more air quote dig through times in my deck, right? Like I've got the 4 digs, the 2 Narsets, the 2 Jaces. I have a lot of fucking dig through times in my deck post board, and I felt like most people aren't playing that type of list. So I felt like I was like kind of unlucky to not be just ripping like gas in the mirror late game. So that was a bummer. I played against the Breach deck once. I did beat it. I made a punt. It was like the second round. It was still really early. I cast my discard spell and the agonizing remorse, and my opponent, reveals their hand, yada yada. And Moto, for some reason, takes it's got the graveyard window and the hand window, and it just blows up the graveyard window way bigger and in the foreground. And then it makes the hand one all tiny over in the corner for some, I don't know why, the UI is fucking whack in Moto. And so I'm like, oh, that's weird. It's really similar to the cards they've already seen. I was like, I guess they're just, they're really redundant. They're drawing a lot of redundant cards. And so I was like, oh, I'll take this one. And I fucking exiled a card from the graveyard instead from their hand. Retarded. Really stupid. Really, really stupid.
Opponent's like, huh.
My opponent's a moron. And so they combo off the next turn, right? And I was like, fuck, man, this sucks. This is awful. I'm so stupid. I'm kicking myself. I was like, I never scoop though online, especially in events like this. Whatever, F6. I'll go read Twitter or something and wait for them to do their thing. Maybe they'll burn a bunch of clock and it'll matter later. I'm that guy. And they're going, and then they just pass turn. It's like, what? I'm looking through the graveyard because I haven't been paying attention. So I'm like, oh, I guess they just fizzled. They had 4 cards left in deck or something. I was like, oh, okay, I have to not just lose to Oracle now, I guess, or Fae into something. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just play Control for a turn or two. And I won. I was like, okay, next. And so yeah, I won that match amazingly, wow. Despite basically throwing game 1. So that was cool. Played against Mono Black in round 6 deep into the event. I beat them. I milled them out with Jace one of the games.
You milled them with Jace?
Yeah, I milled them out. Or I milled myself out with Jace. I won with Jace's ult. Sorry.
It's wow.
Yeah. I milled them out. I milled myself out and won with Jace is what I mean. So yeah, did the Jace thing. I think they lost Legacy to me and I think in one, I'm trying to remember if this is the event. I had an opponent lost Legacy me and named Thassa's Oracle. I was just I think that was game 1 against this guy. I'm forgetful, but I think this was against the Mono Black player. And then I was just kill you with Jace combo the next turn or something. I'm pretty sure I just I think I had Inverter in play, so they named. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe they didn't have a choice. I'm so forgetful. Maybe that's what it was. But the next game, one of the games,
we're so bad. Oh no, they were just dead either way.
I was wait, they just did either way. Maybe that's what it was. Oh, my memory's terrible. But the next game they named Inverter. They stripped all my inverters out of my deck successfully, and then I just had to play the one game with Jace and got there. It was fun. They were really fun games actually. They're really, really long games. Legion's End was very good. And then I played against Mono Red the last round, the kind of chonky but not too chonky red with Torbrain, semi chonky, a little thick in the middle, Love Handle red. But they weren't playing Glory Bringers and all that jazz. And man, is that version of the deck really bad against Torbrain? I don't know how to pronounce that card. It's so bad against him. You have no removal that hits him except for Fatal Push, and the list was on 3 Choked Estuaries, 3 Fabled Passage, just to try to enable more turn 1 black for Thoughtseize on 1 consistently, because the deck is terrible at Thoughtseizing on 1. You don't play nearly enough black sources to do it.
I don't think Fabled Passage solves that problem though, does it?
You play less Fabled Passage.
Oh.
Usually you play 4 because they turn on your Fatal Pushes. It's the only way you have to turn on Fatal Passage other than Omen of the Sea if you're playing them. So it's really hard to kill stuff that's you're heroes downfalling stuff. So it's actually really hard to deal with 4 drops. And so they have 2 in hand. You you discard, take 1, don't find discard for the second they play it, and you're oh, I guess that's here now. Everything in their deck does 2 extra fucking damage now. Awesome. Goblin Chain Whirler, take 2. Fucking A. Oh, hit you with the Chain Whirler, take 5. Dear God, it's brutal. And they have a lot of 3 drops like Chain Whirler too, which are obviously just as hard to deal with. So Legion's End, not hitting a 3 drop. So
yeah.
So I just got rolled by it. Oh, and they're splashing blue for, as far as I can tell, just Mystical Dispute. So I had to I went for the combo in one game, and they were lol, get fucking disputed, get out of here, kid. So lost that one. So I finished 3-4. Beat Black, Mono Black, the Mirror, and Breach, and lost to the Mirror 3 times and Mono Red. So, Mono Red definitely was not looking good from the way the game's played out. My version of the deck wasn't very well positioned against them. I'm sure I could have played it a little better, but it didn't feel like I was favored in that matchup. So I'm pretty okay losing that one. And then, God, the mirrors, though. The mirrors were just brutal. So what are you going to do, I guess, right? But Inverter's sweet.
The thing I want to ask you is, how do you feel about... Because it seems like Pioneer right now is very centered around blue decks and Mystical Dispute.
Yeah, it really is. Everyone's
even
playing
after
it.
the ban of Oko, it's like still everyone just packing a bunch of Mystical Disputes.
Oh, it's like a 4 of, just like you just play 4. And some of them in the main deck. If you're on a blue deck, yeah. It's like you just look at like the decks that people are playing, and it's just like it's good against all the good decks for the most part. Like, I'll pull up the.
It's like, is there a way to play a deck that? It's like hard to not play a blue deck, right?
Well, yeah, because it's
either playing the chunky-ish red deck or the Heliod deck or a blue deck.
Yeah, because you take the best decks in the format are like Inverter, blue deck, Banter, blue white spirits, blue deck. Bug Delirium or Bug Inverter, blue deck. Lotus Breach, blue deck. So yeah, you're down in like mono black aggro, mono white Heliod, or a mono red deck. I get the 5-color Nimizet deck, get stuff snagged by it. The Ensoul deck gets stuff snagged by it.
Yeah, like Nimizet is blue.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just the good decks are blue, and I don't think like blue is super overpowered feeling either. Is the weird thing. Like, the Spirits deck is a blue deck because Spirits are blue. Cool. I don't think Spirits is a problem by like any means. It's a disruptive, aggressive deck. Fine. Good. Inverter. Well, Dig Through Time is obviously a potentially problematic card, so that one I could see, blue being pretty good. Bug Delirium, it's an Uro deck. Like, Uro is why, the big reason why you're paying blue in that deck. And it's one of your most important cards, so Dispute, just like natural include there. Lotus Breach, again, I don't feel like the blue cards are like busted in the deck, right? Like Fae of Wishes and, like Pour Over the Page, like, standard blue combo deck stuff. They're like, these are cards that are not really bannable, and people aren't really playing too many digs, if at all, in Breach. They're playing like 0 to 1, I think, maybe sometimes 2.
Yeah, I think 2's on the higher end.
Yeah, and then like the Is It in Soul deck, like, are the blue cards really the problem here? Like, it's just a lot of decks happen to be playing blue. Like, I mean, I guess the air quotes like biggest defender blue cards in the format are Dig and Uro, and I don't like Uro very much, but I don't think it's like on the chopping block for a banning by any means at this point. So Dig is like the only like card that's like, oh, like this is a blue card that's problematic, and outside of Inverter, it's not really seeing play in like huge numbers. So the format is just really coincidentally blue, I feel like, because I don't know how you like you don't fix that, right? So everyone's just playing a pile of Mystical Disputes.
So would you say that it was just as successfully powered down the green decks? I mean, it looks like it, right?
Yeah, I mean, green got powered down a ton until they printed Uro, and like Uro is a very fair card at the end of the day. So I mean, But
I mean, like, hardly anybody is playing Llanowar Elf decks.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a complaint that a lot of people who were critical of the format had, that the people are happy about now. Like Jeff Hoogland was like always complaining about that, and it's true. I talked about it before in the past. Is that like the Llanowar Elf decks, like, if you're on the draw against one of those decks, it feels terrible because you pass for your turn 1 and they basically go straight to turn 3. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. And so those decks are just playing big dumb idiots for the most part, and big dumb idiots are really not good against a combo. So Breach and Inverter just kill them because they don't interact very well, and the Delirium deck just outgrinds it, right? They play Uro, and Uro is a 6/6, and all their crap that they're paying off with is 5/5. So it gets outclassed. Also, they can take a few hits because they're gaining life from Uro, or Courser of Krufix is blocking their smaller stuff, whatever. So yeah, the elf decks got kind of pushed out of the format. The one complaint I actually have with the format I was thinking about is the ramp decks outside of Sultai Delirium, which I guess is kind of a ramp deck. They're bad. They're bad. No one's playing them, right? Like, what happens?
They vanished.
Yeah, they vanished. What happened to like the Arboreal Grazer kind of like a Tron-esque deck that people were playing that like ramped into Eldrazi? It's gone. Like, no one plays it anymore. Deckers just can't keep up. It doesn't interact well with the combo decks. It's, I think, kind of on the ropes against the aggro decks, and I think the mid-range decks are fast enough to kill it. Sometimes, like, so I think the lack of having, I hate to say it because I fucking hate big mana decks by and large. I'm definitely anti big mana, but like the format is in kind of a weird spot where there's no good big mana deck, unless you count Sultai Delirium, because they're like trying to ramp up to 13 mana Emrakul. Like, they're kind of ramping, like, they're making land drops of Uro, and that's how they're ramping.
Is playing an Uro deck make you a ramp deck? Like, not really.
Not really. I mean, they are playing, big stuff. They are a big Delirium deck. I mean, they're playing Ishkana Graph Widow and Emrakul the Promised End and 2 Nissa Who Shakes the World. Like, these are expensive cards, like, and you're getting to them earlier and then trying to like cast them plus do other stuff the same turn. But it's only a 23 land deck, so it's not really like,
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think Uro is a busted card, though. It is just, the problem I have with Uro, I guess, is that it's very homogenizing on fair decks that are trying to like not do combo things. It's like, well, why aren't you playing Uro, right? Like,
yeah.
That's my big complaint.
It's just kind of like a very good vanilla card.
Yeah.
Feels like.
It's just way above rate. It's way above rate. It's hard to deal with. Thoughtseize is like, air quotes, the best card in the format. Maybe not even air quotes. I think actually it's pretty fair just to say Thoughtseize is probably the best card in the format. Uro deals with Thoughtseize decently well. Like, they take it and it's like, oh, I don't get to like do my turn 3 Uro, but it's still there waiting, Or if they take some other card because you don't have Uro, well, that's food for the Uro. So, yeah, I think it's just positioned well against like what people are trying to do in the format by and large. So, yeah, Pioneer is an interesting spot. Combo is a big thing. The Breach decks are manageable. You have good sideboard options, like Damping Sphere and even Grafdigger's Cage. People have, you can play garbage like Deafening Silence out of white. There are options to beat the deck. The Inverter deck is a little harder to target. People are really leading hard on the extraction effects to beat the deck, which are, generally speaking, unless you're playing Lost Legacy, problematic, because if you do actually snag anything out of their hand, they're not going down cards, and if you're basically always down a card is the issue, right? Because you've spent a card to like disable their deck. But they might have sideboarded in Coax from Blind Eternities or Scarab God or Pack Rats, and so they just have another way to kill you, and they're still like a grindy control deck, right? They have good ways to find their sideboard cards with dig through time, so they're not like, hoping just to rip the one out of the deck. Like, they have good dig. I really like Inverter, but I could definitely see dig getting banned because of it.
I mean, it seems like Inverter's definitely like the deck to beat.
Yeah, I think so. It's just very resilient. And it's popular too as part of the thing. Like, people really like these type of decks. It's super interactive. It's got a combo finish. It's interacting with interesting zones. The gameplay is just very fun and interesting because of how Inverter works with flipping your deck. It's novel and requires a lot of planning. It's the type of deck that appeals to people that like playing interactive games of Magic. There's lots of decisions. I really like it for that reason. Like, that's why I'm playing this. I like making lots of decisions in a game of Magic. Inverter is packed to the gills with decisions. Discard when you invert, scrying decisions, dig decisions, how much cards you put in your deck versus don't put in your deck. Do you mill yourself or your opponent with Jace? Every card on the deck has just a ton of freaking modes and options and decisions you have to make. And so it's a really high skill cap deck because of that, which appeals to people. It's a really good deck, which appeals to people. So even if Inverter isn't maybe if it isn't super busted, it's gonna have a huge meta share as long as it's like above average, right? So I don't know. WotC's gonna have the data from Moto, and I think that's gonna be a huge factor in their decision making process. If Inverter is just like slapping the shit out of stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if Dig gets a ban. Or maybe something like Oracle if they're worried about Breach as well. But Breach just put up really good numbers, and I guess we can kind of segue from that into looking at GP Phoenix and PT Phoenix. Do we want to talk about just the GP, or do we want to talk about the PT first?
Whichever one first you like.
I guess we can start with the PT because it's the more prestigious event, I guess. So let's pull it up here. Let me get this. I'll pull up the view for people on YouTube. So we've got our matchup grid here, I guess. So best performing deck at the PT, win percentage wise, was Lotus Breach. It had a 63.8% win rate, sporting an insane win rate against Mono Black aggro of 93.8%, 85% win rate against Bug Inverter, 72% against Azorius Control, and it was positive against everything except Mono Red. It looks like Mono Red whomped on it though, lost a significant portion of its games against Mono Red, just too fast for it, I guess. And Inverter, on the other hand, only had a 54.6% win rate, despite being the most popular deck by a pretty wide margin. So it was still positive, though. 54.9, nothing to sneeze at. Boasting a pretty poor matchup against Lotus Breach. Actually, the same win rate as Breach had against Mono Red, so comparably poor matchups. And a positive matchup against everything else except Bug Inverter. Since they have Uro to kind of grind a little bit better. Top performing decks outside of that were the Bug Delirium deck at a 55.8% win rate, beating out Inverter. And Azorius Control at 54.7%, also beating out Inverter. Just barely in that case. So, I mean, it's, what was it, the fourth best performing deck, despite being the most popular deck? I mean, it's seems like it's not super busted. Cat was already out of the bag from the previous weekend's pair of GPs and PTs. So that's good, I think, as far as, metagame wise. Although Breach's numbers here are quite concerning, right? 63.8%, just boasting a great win rate against everything except for Mono Red, and then a 51.6 against Banned Spirit. So close-ish to even there.
Yeah, but if you look over at the GP really quick, Lotus Breach's win rate of the GP was sub 50%.
Yeah, it fell a lot. Everyone was really packing the damping spheres. There were people on Twitter saying, like, if you're playing in the GP, because the registration for the GP was after, obviously, and it was like, if you're not playing damping sphere in your deck, you need to like cut a sideboard card and put a damping sphere in, like, bare minimum. So like that was kind of the mood, right? That people had. It was like, you need to play Answers for Breach in your deck at the GP or you are insane. So obviously people came out in force with the sideboard hate, and it still had almost a 50% win rate.
Yeah, the best performing deck in the GP was Dimir Inverter.
A 56% win rate.
I mean, as you described, being a deck that's more resilient to the hate cards.
Obviously a bigger event at the GP as well. A much broader spread of player skill as well, since anyone can show up rather than having to qualify and be, it'll be a pretty good player to make it to the PT by and large. So this paints a picture more of, Inverter being, if this is the people's meta and the people's results with Inverter are 56%, that is more concerning, right? And I think that's probably a function, again, of the deck just being harder to answer in boarding.
Yeah, like if the PT full of pros is performing well on Breach, that's perhaps expected.
Mm-hmm.
Like Breach getting second place, piloted by William Hugh Jensen.
Yeah, he got really unlucky. He got robbed, really. He got really unlucky.
And then another
definitely should have won,
making the top 8 with Alan Wu. So I mean, these are pretty known good players.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at this point to see Inverter take a hit down the line. I imagine Moto data probably kind of reflects this type of a spread, but it takes a while for people to adapt. So card availability is really high on Moto. People are incentivized to play stuff that beats the top decks because they get financial motivation to do so. If you play something that wumps on Inverter and everyone's playing Inverter, you're going to win a lot and you're going to come out with a lot of ticks and chests. So had to see how that shapes up online. But wouldn't surprise me to wake up on one Monday morning and see that something from Inverter had gotten taken from it. That's kind of where I'm at on that one at this point. And actually looking here at some events that we've had this past weekend. We've got a Pioneer Premier event that occurred, and at 7-0, out of 6 7-0 decks, 3 of them were Inverter. 2 6-1 Inverter decks. In the Pioneer Challenge, the only 7-0 was Inverter of Truth. 1 6-1 and like 5 people at 5-2 with it. So really good results continuing. Again, it is really popular. It is a deck that the best players are gravitating to because it's a deck that gives you the opportunity to leverage play skill, in the mirror and against other decks. So it is, I think, pulling a lot of really good players to its ranks, but these are, again, really good numbers for the deck. So wouldn't be surprised to see something happen to it. But backstepping a little bit to the GP for GP Phoenix, we had a very interesting result. A very interesting top deck. You notice we haven't talked about Mono Red Eldrazi once, ever, on the podcast. Yeah, not in Pioneer, at least.
I would almost argue this this isn't really an Eldrazi deck.
Yeah.
It's kind of a it's a mono red deck that happens to play 3 Eldrazi Obligators.
Yeah.
If anything, the real spice here is 1 copy of Satyr's Cunning.
Yeah, what a card. No one knows what this card does. I have it up on screen for you YouTubers and we'll read it out. But I guess people were saying on Twitter that like every opponent this guy had on like that was in like the feature match area had to ask for the Oracle text on this card because they have open deck lists, right? Yeah. So they look at the deck list, they see Satyr's Cunning, and they're like, what the fuck is that card? And so they have to call a judge over, and the judge has to show them the card before the game even starts.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. But why? So it is a single red mana sorcery. It says create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. It is a really shitty raging goblin. Does not rage.
It does not rage.
Doesn't block. It's
not
either.
Even a goblin.
The upside, air quotes here, is it has escape for 2 and a red. Exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. So in the long game, you can make some 1/1s that can't block. Although people pointed out that this works like a really, really ghetto Castle Ardenvale in the long game, which is kind of good against control decks. You just kind of keep pumping out 1/1s.
Yeah, I mean, then it triggers prowess.
Yeah,
so
their only good way to interact with it is sweepers.
And you're a mono red deck. You're not using your graveyard for anything else, so
yeah, might as well get some value out of it. But yeah, that's a one of just kind of they're playing the 4 Swiss Spears, the 4 Soul Scar Mages, and a Zergo Bellstriker. It is the 10th one drop creature.
But better than the second Zergo.
Yeah, man, this deck is low to the ground though, with 4 wild slashes as well. It's got what 14 1-drops. That is a lot of 1-drops.
Yeah, still playing for Torbrand.
Card's really good. Cards have Skyship Raider, also just really good. Really, does its best janky Geist of St. Traft impression.
Yeah.
Getting in for 3 every turn. It's got Menace too, so it's really hard to block her.
I mean, really good with your dwarf, right? Because both creatures get the proc.
Oh yeah. The monkey.
So this thing, instead of coming in for 3, is now 6.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage for a 2-drop.
Actually, no, it's 7 actually.
Yeah, it's 7 damage. It's a lot. Also, Obligator is really good against all these inverter decks because they play a Inverter of Truth and you're like, cool, thank you. I'll take that. 5 mana, hit you for 9.
Yeah,
excellent. Or if they played Torbrand the turn before, they're hitting you for what, 10? Well, plus the Torbrand, so probably 13.
That is incorrect.
Oh, it's colorless. Oh no!
Eldrazi Obligator and your Inverter are both colorless.
No! So I guess it's not very good. But
yeah, hitting you for 6 is not very good at all.
Yeah, still very good. And then it is kind of an Eldrazi deck. The sideboard has 4 Thought-Knot Seers, which is pretty solid against these combo decks. It exiles the card, so they're not getting it back. And it's a big boy. Gets in real good. And they're leveraging, what do they have? 12 colorless sources. They've got 4 Ramoneps, 4 Mutavaults, and 4 Battlefield Forges with 12 mountains. Nice clean mana base. Interesting that they're playing 24 lands. It's quite a bit of lands, actually, for a deck this aggressive.
Maybe it's just a testament to how important hitting your Torbrand is.
Mm-hmm. Also,
you're playing these adventure cards and Eldrazi Obligator. It's not like you don't have things to spend your mana on.
Mm-hmm.
And Satyr's Cutting is also a mana sink, right?
That's true.
If you just have nothing going on, you just make a Satyr.
And 8 of your lands double is damage as well with the Ramonep Ruins and the Mutavaults. So it's pretty okay.
So like, you can, the extra mana goes into animating your Mutavault.
We've only got 16 lands that just do land things, so pretty good. I like this deck is really lean and low to the ground. Definitely seems powerful in the meta that was at the PT, or sorry, at the GP. Yeah, what a deck! What a fucking deck! Satyr's Cunning, just can't get over it. Chandra's Defeat, an interesting one to see as well. Trying to think what people are. I mean, right?
Just good red mirrors.
Yeah,
right?
just the mirrors. Yeah, they valued it enough. Some fries for the blue white decks. Kills Fry kills Jace as well. So yeah. Guess it just also kills Oracle. Can't be countered. So it is a good way to stop Inverter from doing the combo. Yeah, just a really lean, mean deck. And then at the top of the heap in that format as well, what we have? We had an Inverter in second place, Bant Spirits, more Inverter, just a lot of, God, it was just all Inverter, 2 Spirits decks, and Mono Red Eldrazi. Mono Red Eldrazi against Bant Spirits seems like a pretty favorable matchup for Mono Red. Their creatures attack into spirits pretty well. Prowess. Karizev has Menace and First Strike. Zergo is fine, I guess. He's only a 1 of anyways. And they've got, 8 removal spells to point directly at him. Rampaging Frostdawn also really good against spirits, right? They have to play creatures to do anything. The deck is just a pile of creatures, and Frostdawn just stacks it up.
Punishes them for doing so. Yeah.
Yeah, and man, if they have Torbrand in play too, you just get bolted every time you play a creature. It's like, how does Spirits beat that? Like, they have to counter.
Cast a Coco and take 6. Like,
yeah, no, thank you. So, yeah, this deck seems really well positioned for the meta. They did a good job playing this deck and building it. But yeah, just kind of looking at where we're at in the Pioneer meta, it definitely seems like there is pretty defined top of the heap with I'd say Inverter and Breach at the top, together with maybe the Sultai Delirium decks a cut below, and then Bant Spirits
decks are doing fairly all right.
Yeah,
too.
somewhere floating about in that same realm. And then
so you have your clear front runners of Demeanor, Inverter, and those Breach. You got your Sultai stuff, some Spirits, maybe mono white Heliod, maybe 5-color Nyth kind of hanging out in the background, and then your red decks.
Yeah, the red decks really are poised to strike well at the meta, though. I feel like, I was really harsh on those decks because I feel like in a vacuum they're just strictly worse than mono black, because mono black has just such good interaction and recursion, but the red decks just really push the damage effectively. I think a lot of that is Torbrand and the adventure spells like Bone Crusher Giant, and they get a lot of damage out of their land. So black gets utility with Castle Locked-Twain and Mutavault, but Mutavault plus Remnant Ruins is pretty good too. So the decks are similar because the mono black decks are playing 4-drops as well with Rankle and the Demon. The Demon is a 4-drop as well, right? Or is it a 3-drop?
Yeah, but I think the
4/4.
It's kind of interesting that you would think that the Thoughtseize deck would be better against Breach, but the numbers show that like the lowest Breach decks just crush mono black.
Mm-hmm. Well, this discard is really bad against that deck. They're so redundant.
Mono red decks just womp on the Lotus Breach deck.
Yeah, I think the red decks are just a turn faster at least, and that is the key factor, not the discard. The Lotus decks really shrug off discard effectively, which is why they're doing so well in a field full of Inverter. Inverter, they do play counter magic. Their counter magic is soft counter magic, which you can get out of range of with your Lotus fields. And they're just so redundant that they just bully their way through discard very easily. So I could see why mono black definitely not favored against Breach.
Like game 1, right? All like this list I'm looking at here that 1/7-0. The only permission at all is 2 Mystical Disputes.
In which one?
One of the Pioneer Premier.
Oh,
the one that had 3 7/0 to me Inverter.
Yeah. They're just playing Dispute as their counter spells. Yeah, you see some copies of Censor, maybe a Drown in the Lock, but yeah, Dispute is the big counter spell. Really leaning on the discard, by and large. So yeah, just Lotus Field just beats that. Just rips off the top. All their cards are insane once they have field in play. Like, imagine you're just like, ripping their hand apart, but not their lands. They set up Lotus Field. Maybe they get 2 with a Thespian Stage off of like a Sylvan Scrying, and then they pour over the pages off the top of their deck or something, or Underworld Breach. Like, you just lose. Like, GG.
I guess the good news is you can Mystical Dispute Fae of Wishes.
Yeah. Although by the time they're wishing, they probably have a whole boatload of mana. They're doing the thing.
But if they like turn to like Tormund Razor, turn to Lotus Field, turn 3 Wish, like
Yep, good.
You can't let that resolve, right?
No, you can't. So, I mean, it's not like saying it's unbeatable. Like, you can definitely win as Inverter. I think Narset is actually just a really good card in the matchup, because it bottlenecks them in a very effective way. They do need to like draw cards to do their thing, and they don't really have good interaction against it. Like they're playing all these like artifact take cards to deal, because everyone's playing Damping Sphere, right? So they're like, oh, gotta have like my ways to deal with Damping Sphere, and just like, lol, here's a Narset. Like, are you playing and did you board in like Fry? No, tough shit. Like,
yeah, at that point it's like, well, do I have enough time to load up this Blast Zone?
Yeah, exactly. So Blast Zone is a really good card in the deck, though, giving him a main deck, answer to shit like Narset. So, but yeah, definitely.
If you're already playing 4 Sylvan Scrying, it seems pretty free.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we'll see where Pioneer goes. It's fun. It's a fun format, even though it is pretty homogenized right now. I do enjoy playing the Inverter Mirror, so can't really complain. But I don't think it'll stay like this forever.
I mean, so you've been playing a lot more Pioneer. Do you feel like that the format is fairly, as you said, homogenized, and that you don't really see rogue decks very much?
It's like night and day, dude. It really is. Like on Moto, it was like I played against the weirdest crap early on, and like part of that was like it was a new format. But I was playing Cat, the Cat combo deck, and I was seeing weird crap, and then that got banned out, and that was still pretty fresh, and then. Yeah, I was just seeing weird janky decks for a long time. And then like even when I was seeing less jank, I was seeing a wide variety of decks. Like, you play against like the Zombie Rally deck, and you play against the Flayer deck, and you play against Ensoul, and it's all over the place. These green-red Stompy decks that were just trying to jam like a really powerful 3-drop, like a Rattlemaster or a Lovestruck Beast on turn 2 every game. And like you just don't see much of that anymore. It's like everyone's playing like an Uro deck, an Inverter deck, Breach. You see people on like Ensoul sometimes. But then like the mono red, there's a variety of mono red decks that see play. They're kind of all over the place. And then mono black, which is pretty homogenized. But yeah, like those are like what you see really. Like it's a lot of the same decks over and over. Kind of a natural path for a format to take as the meta stabilizes anyways. But I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think the fact that Inverter and Breach are the top decks right now really puts a cap on like what type of jank you can play. But the thing is like, you can't just play like your random whatever deck because you're gonna like get combo killed and die, right? But even if you take those out of the picture, most of those weird janky decks are fair, right? Like by and large, they're pretty fair decks. And like, I'm not sure they beat Uro very well unless they're like a rally deck or something that just goes really crazy wide all of a sudden. Or maybe like a Flayer deck that, they can't really interact with very well with their removal.
Because what I would say is probably one of the reasons why we're so drawn to playing Modern is that it's a format where you feel like you can kind of play jank.
Yeah.
And get away with it.
Yeah, definitely.
But in Standard, I certainly don't think that's the case.
Not right now, no.
I feel like a lot of the times Standard gets basically solved fairly quickly by, the pro players, and then every once in a while you can, maybe someone comes up with something spicy, but by and large you kind of just have the same like 3 to 4 known quantities crashing into each other,
and then it swaps out fairly frequently. But yeah, I agree, it's the same shit over and over, but like yeah,
so my impression of Pioneer is that it's kind of the same. There's 5 playable decks and you kind of ram them into each other over and over again.
It's definitely moving that way.
It's harder to play garbage and get away with it. I think Legacy, it's hard to play straight up garbage in Legacy, I think, but you can still play some sweet jank.
Yeah, I think that the really deep card pool in Legacy helps with that. Also, the fact that the format is so I think the strategic, or maybe how to describe it. I think Legacy is actually very homogenized around Brainstorm and Force of Will decks, but there is like a huge variety to those decks, and then your rogue decks can prey on that, and there's a wide variety of rogue decks that prey on that. So like the depth of the card pool in Legacy allows you to kind of have a lot of different decks, but like maybe like strategically there's not actually that much variation, if that makes sense. Like a big chunk of the decks in Legacy decks are playing like Force of Will, Brainstorm, Ponder, but then like what they do from beyond there is kind of all over the place. You know, you got control, combo, mid range.
Yeah. Are you a Miracle deck? Are you a Delver deck?
Yeah.
Are you somewhere in between?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you High Tide?
Yeah, exactly. You got combo, control, mid range. But then there's like the Chalice decks, the Death and Taxes decks, the land decks. Like those decks are all leveraging something about the blue meta, right? Like the lands decks are not really playing as many spells and like playing stuff that's like really hard to interact with and like grinding out value that way. And then like Death and Taxes is
Enchantress decks with
tons
of carpet flowers.
Yeah, like Death and Taxes is taxing everything and going really wide in a deck that is, you know, form that doesn't have a lot of sweepers, and then like yada yada. So like I think the Legacy format is pretty homogenized, but there's enough room to kind of subvert that. And the homogenized aspect of the format is like very flexible in what you play within that. Like it's like, well, you really should be doing this thing, but this thing has a lot of potential applications.
I guess there's a lot of room to meme.
To meme, yeah.
Like if you want to play a couple spicy garbage cards to meme on your opponent, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Like the mono red sneak decks.
Mm-hmm.
And these prison style, these Chalice decks, you can kind of play whatever you want.
Oh, if you're playing like there's like a prison shell, yeah, with like Chalice and like Trinisphere, and then like maybe some of the taxing, like the sphere effects. You would throw whatever the fuck you like. You have those. You have the colorless lands that support it, and then like whatever the hell you want. You want to play like Curse Stompy? Go for it. You want to play Dragon Stompy? Go for it. Mono Blue Stompy? Go for it. Like you can stomp with whatever the hell you want. Soldier Stompy? Great.
Soldier Stompy?
Yeah,
why not?
Why not? Yeah, whatever the fuck you want. Like doesn't even matter. Like whatever floats your boat. But then there's like to like give the format fair shake, though, there is a lot of stuff wandering around like Painter, right? Like I guess Painter is leveraging the fact that it is a very blue meta because it plays a bunch of fucking Pyroblasts. Like that's like they're just like, oh, I'm a deck playing like a pile of Pyroblasts in a really blue meta. But then like they leverage it with like the Painter to actually make those Pyroblasts do stuff against the non-blue decks, right? So there is like
and a 1 mana sinkhole.
Yeah, so like there is a wide variety of stuff out there, but I do feel like the like the sun that everything orbits around is the blue. They call it the Cantrip Cartel and Force of Will, right? That's the sun that the whole Legacy galaxy, or not galaxy, the solar system of Legacy, spins around. And then like the Chalice decks are like a black hole sitting on the edge, sucking in anything in that comes too close. But Pioneer doesn't have that depth of options, right? The card pool is not nearly deep enough to support something like that. And part of the problem is the interaction on the format is just bad. That's why everyone's playing Mystical Dispute, is because it's like honest to god, like good interaction, right? It's like, oh, 1 mana, one mana, leak something, like
do something.
Like the interaction in Pioneer is fucking terrible, and like all the good interaction is black. Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, like Chrome de la Creme right there. And then all the discard spells, like the 2 mana ones, are pretty solid too. So it's just like it's hard to interact. So you like want to be doing something really powerful and proactive, and so then you have these combo decks, and that's kind of where everything coalesces from, I feel like. So that'll get better as more stuff is added to the card pool. But yeah, like so you have like in black you have the the 2 1 mana spells I talked about. You've got Thanawar Elves in green, and then like your 1 mana spells in like red and white are pretty garbo.
What red? You have basically shock.
Yeah, you have shock and like
Monasteries just
and Swiss Spears, yeah.
But white has
garbage. Like
nothing.
In 3-minute Inspector is not a playable card in this format. Like, yeah. So white has been suffering as a color for a long time in Modern Magic, and Pioneer definitely it shows. White is a pretty weak color. Green was good until they knocked all the really busted stuff out of it, and so
they just banned 3 green cards.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think it'll get better. I think it's an interesting format still. I still enjoy it. But if you are looking to play jank, you're kind of getting pushed out of Pioneer right now, I would say. If you want to play, in an event where people are competitive and trying to win. So I mean that was kind of, always gonna happen, that, the Wild Wild West type brewing period would end, and I think we are reaching its conclusion right around, this first batch of PTs. Not surprising. It was always kind of a likely possibility that would happen. The pros would get involved, kind of shake everything out, and then the format would kind of coalesce around that. So not necessarily a bad thing, but it is kind of going to be a bummer to not play quite as much garbage in Pioneer anymore and play against it. I don't know if I'm one to talk, though, because I've been a filthy net decking player the whole time. I've been playing the sweet garbage the whole time.
Yeah, just playing the top tier.
Top tier.
Until it's banned.
Yep, top tier till it's banned, or at least something close to it. Like when I was playing Flare. I think before Once got banned, Flare was like in a really good spot. The deck was powerful, but it really leaned on Once Upon a Time. Like, yeah, man. That deck just really needs Lot Lift Troll. It really needs Lot Lift Troll so badly, and it wanted to play a low land count, so Once fixed both of those problems. So, womp womp. But yeah, so I think we kind of covered Pioneer pretty well. Looking forward to seeing what changes. I think my prediction is that we will see a card hit from Breach, almost certainly, and from Inverter more likely than not. And then it'll be interesting to see where things go from there. I think both decks can survive being taken down a notch. I don't know what you hit out of the Lotus Field deck, though. If you hit Breach, which is a really busted card in all honesty, I'm not sure if the deck is like...
I think the deck's dead.
I think it just dies at that point. So, but I don't know what else you can really hit to like take it down a peg, but also like I guess Oracle? And like maybe that's...
you could go after Sylvan Scrying to make finding Lotus more difficult.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's like where they want to be.
A less consistent combo deck.
And then against Inverter, they got a few options. They can cut the Inverter out altogether. They can cut out Oracle. They can cut out Dig. Depends how big of guns they want to bring to that one. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we'll see in the next month or two, probably. I would be surprised. But I think as long as they don't cut Inverter out from the deck, I think if they cut Oracle, it's probably dead too, honestly. It has a chance if they cut Oracle. If they cut Inverter, it's obviously gone. I think it's fine without Dig. I think if they cut Dig out of the format, the deck can definitely still survive. I don't know if it's like the deck to play. I don't think it will be, but I think it's still something you can like play. It's like a respectable second tier deck. I think if they do that, I don't think Cruise subs in very well, and they might just maybe I'm wrong on that, but maybe they just ban both and just write it off. But I think without the delve spells, you're kind of like you're playing Necropolis Fiend at that point is like a delve spell, or
Murderous Cut, but
Murderous Cut
targets for that.
Yeah, Necropolis Fiend is kind of decent because it doesn't need targets. It's also good against stuff like Spirits.
Just go towards Garmog Anglers.
Yeah. So
Tassikers, I don't know.
Yeah, so you kind of change the way the deck plays. But I think it's still decent at that point. You have to play much more fair at that point because you're like less likely to find your combo pieces, so you're less all in on the combo. But yeah. It kind of wraps us up on our main topics we wanted to cover, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, Chris.
Nah, not really.
kind of a in-between week here with the Worlds happening this weekend. Congratulations to Paulo for taking that one down. But yeah, not a lot of Modern and Pioneer content out there. So next week, hopefully there'll be, or our next episode, there should be some more stuff to talk about. So look forward to that. We're also going to have another video coming out next week, next Friday. So look forward to that. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. Might be, I think it's time for a Modern video. What do you think? Modern video?
Yeah, probably.
Modern video. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do. Something spicy, probably. We'll plot it out and put it up for you guys. So look forward to that. In the meantime, what's your slot of the week, Chris? What are you super hyped about?
I'm gonna change what I have written here. My slot of the week is going to now be Velcut il Pinacolo Fuso.
Yeah, Italian Velcut.
Italian Velcut. Yeah, so I ordered an Italian Velcut to try out the Dryad combo lists of Amulet and Paper. And I really enjoy this Italian Velcut because the clause where it's saying that it must enter the battlefield tapped, the word that I'm assuming is the tap part is tappato? Tappato?
Tappato.
Tappato. However, the TAP is in capitals, and the PATO is in lowercase.
Yeah, it is interesting. I wonder why. I don't know any Italian, so I'm wondering what the reasoning behind that is.
Yeah, there's no other word that's half capitalized and half not. I don't know, but it's sweet.
Foil, of course, right?
Yeah.
Has to be foil. Unplayable on Paper for Chris if it's not foil.
I already had one that wasn't foil, but I couldn't play it, so.
Amazing.
What about you, John? What is your slot of the week?
I'm split. I'm 50-50 between this Dimir Wurza deck and this blue-white Delver Blade list. I think I'm off enough cards on Dimir that I'm not going to be able to play it until week after next at the minimum, probably. So I'm probably on blue-white Delver Blade. So I'm gonna workshop that a little bit.
John, it's perfect. You have 2 decks, and you have 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
Until we record again.
I know, it's great. One each week, right? So I think week 1 is going to be blue-white Delver Blade, and then week 2 is going to be Dimir Wurza, unless I'm just obsessed with the Delver Blade after playing it. We'll see. I love me a Vapor Snag, but a 2/2 half exile Vapor Snag split I'm not super on board with, honestly. I gotta test that one online and see how I like it, but that's aggressive. It's real aggressive. I guess the idea is maybe you Vapor Snag it, then Archmage's Charm it on the way back down. I don't know. Just don't know about that one. That's still a sweet tempo play though, man. Just they they're Tarmogoyf, and you're into your turn 2, Vapor Snag that shit, untap, pass, land pass. They're Tarmogoyf's back. You're Archmage's Charm, get that shit out of here. In this scenario,
because
you have a Delver
blind
in play.
flipped your turn 1 Delver.
Yeah, yeah, you have to have Delver in play for this to be.
Every other scenario, this is not very good at all.
Yeah, it's bad. You just neglected to play your turn 2 guy. I guess it lets you take the playback, but is that worth a card? I don't know.
It's just remand with extra steps.
Yeah, this is just remand with extra steps. So I don't know. This deck definitely seems to lack in card advantage, so I guess Archmage's Charm is really trying to pull its weight there on getting you back ahead on cards later in the game. You're over here pitching cards willy-nilly to Force of Negation and Vapor Snagging stuff back to hand.
We're not here for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Here for a good time.
Yeah, so I don't know. I can see maybe taking your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, playing 4 Path to Exiles might be a good place. I don't know, you're playing 4 Archmage's Charms. You're playing 2 Mana Leak and 2 Remand, so I guess giving him a land isn't great, but
see, Path's so bad in the Titan meta we're in, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Oh, Path or Titan? Okay, kill your Delver with the land?
Yeah.
Huh.
Feels bad. Feels bad. You just need to play some squelches. Or does Monastery Siege say spell or ability?
Monastery what?
Monastery Siege, the blue one. The blue siege.
Really tested my knowledge here.
I think it's spell or ability. Pay 2 or it's countered.
I think it is the full
Boom!
Frost Titan.
Get out of here, Volcut. We're under siege. Fact checking me, I see. Holding me to it.
Spells your opponent's cast.
Ah! Oh no.
Not abilities.
Oh no. I just need to play some Unsettled Mariners then. It's so bad.
You know, I did have someone play Unsettled Mariner against me, the humans player, to try and negate my my Valakut.
He probably just had a bunch of lands at that point anyways and just paid for it, right?
Well, the problem with Unsettled Mariner
the land
is
enters it and pays for it, right? Is it 2? It's 2, right? Oh yeah, so the land causing the
Mariner's
Volkut.
1.
Is it 1? Yeah. Mariner's only 1?
Yeah, I think Mariner's only 1.
So the land just pays for its own trigger.
Yeah, so long as you stack it right?
Like pay 1. Okay.
Fine.
Acceptable. Yeah.
But yeah, also the problem with Mariner is it's 2 mana, which is conveniently the same mana cost of Meddling Mage, which I'm trying to already destroy to play my Titan.
Yeah.
So explosives is still real good. Don't have to pay extra mana for that one.
Yeah. Well, look forward to us in the next episode. We'll talk about how Chris has been exploding all the humans and how I've been getting whomped on with a terrible blue-white pile. In the meanwhile, thank you for checking us out and sticking around to the very end. If you're wondering where you can find more of our content, you can head on over to mtgconflux.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter under the same name, and you should check out our video content, including this very podcast, on our YouTube channel. You can find this and a video every Friday. So if you want to watch some Moto action, check us out there. Please do. Please subscribe. Hit that like button. We're trying to get our numbers back up. We used to post F&M videos every I think it was every week we posted F&M videos. We've stopped doing that, but we are placing Moto leagues and challenge content instead. So check it out. You can support us and join the MTG Conflux community at patreon.com/MTGConflux or by buying MTG Conflux shirts and swag on redbubble.com. You can find links to those pages as well on our Facebook and Twitter pages. If you have any suggestions or comments, please reach out to us. We'd love to read them. And again, we really do appreciate you for sticking around and join us in the next one.